This is Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren. Frank, how are you doing?
I've had the flu like you've had, mate. I've had it for a couple of weeks. It's my first day out today.
What have you spent it doing?
Watching old fights, watching some football, and some phone calls. But I've been coughing and spluttering too much to talk to too many people.
Well, I'm glad you found time for me in that case, and cough and splutter as much as you need to. You've obviously got a show this weekend in Birmingham. Big show, big event, particularly for Zach Parker. A bit of a showcase for him, hopefully, unless Marcus Morrison upsets the apple cart. Just tell us about the situation now with Zach Parker and how you see him progressing towards that world title shot, because he's been WBO #1 for quite some time, of course.
Well, he's been a revelation, hasn't he? He's come with us. We've kept him busy, and this is yet another outing for him. He's got, I think he's got a tough fight, by the way, with Marcus Morrison. You know, Marcus is in a position where he's got to make a bit of a statement himself. I mean, he gave Eubank a good fight, Eubank Jr a good fight, and I think Zach needs to make a statement. He's been ranked, as you say, for a while at #1. What's so interesting is on the same night, and again on BT, but on BT box office, you've got the Canelo and Caleb Plant fight. So that's that. You know, he is a #1. He's a mandatory there. So if he comes through, he should be looking at fighting the winner of that fight sometime next year. And he's desperate to do it. I think he's an extremely good fighter. I really do rate it. You know, and I'd like to prove that point by making it, even if we could, to make the fight against Eubank Jr. if he was willing to step up and do it. It'd be a big fight for both of them. But I think my man's got the beating of him.
What do you expect the winner of the Vegas fight to do, whether it's Canelo or Plant? Do you expect them to relinquish the titles and they fragment again, or do you expect them to defend against all their mandatories?
I don't know yet. All the governing bodies got together last week and talking about these situations, and it'd be interesting to see what comes out of that. What I'd do it, and it'll also be interesting if he does win, and I expect him to win in a real tough fight. I think it's a good fight. I think Plant will give a very good account of himself. If Canelo does come through, he may move up a weight. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if that happens, I think WBO #2 at super middleweight is Daniel Jacobs. Is that a fight you'd fancy for the vacant title?
I think Zach Parker can, look, there's levels, and Canelo's the guy. I think Zach Parker, I don't think is a problem fighting any of them. You know, the Canelo fight is a tough fight, and he certainly would not, I don't think he would disgrace himself in that fight. But any of the other guys, you know, I'd make the fights in a heartbeat. I think he's an extremely good fighter who will rise to the occasion.
Do you have a slight concern that he hasn't fought anyone at quite world level yet? And when he does get his shot, whether it's Jacobs, whether it's Canelo Plant, it's a big step up.
Well, it is a step up, but a step up comes for every fighter. What I've seen of him, I like what I've seen of him. I like his movement. I like he's got a good jab. He's got a very good boxing brain, and he's very hurtful. He's a good puncher. And what I've seen of him, I really do like. And I think he'll hold his own with everyone.
Ideally, would you like to see him in with, I don't know, a Dirrell or an Uzcata guy or someone like that before
I'd like to see him in with, I would right now like to see him in with Eubanks. That's what I'd like to see. Everybody, the reason I'd like that is to get more recognition. You know, Eubanks, obviously, he's been getting a lot of publicity on Sky. He's 32 years of age. I mean, when you look back, his dad had fought, I think, 17, 18 times for a world title and retired by then. Yeah. So he's still there at the moment. And I think, Zach is a young guy, and I think that Eubanks would be a perfect match for him. I would like to see that. But if not, one of those guys. And if it's Jacobs, it's Jacobs.
There's talk about Eubank fighting in December against Liam Williams on Sky on a boxer like Wasserman show. What do you make of that fight, and if it does come together?
Well, I think Liam is a really good competitor. He's been to the world 3 times, been unlucky 3 times, twice against Liam Smith, and obviously the fight out in the States that he had, which I actually thought he'd given a better account of himself, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. But it's a good fight. It's not a bad fight. But, Zach Parker, I think, has got the beating of both of them.
Okay, interesting. Now, talking of Boxer and Sky and the kind of new era since Matchroom moved on to the DAZN, what have you made of their output so far?
Well, it's been all right. I mean, the shows have been they've had some. Shows have been okay. It's great that they've got boxing going on Sky still, and I'm pleased that they are doing that. It's a great outlet for our sport. But we want to see a big fight, don't we? And there are a couple of big fights that can be made. Maybe a trade-off. One of our guys fights one of their guys. They can put it on Sky, and we reciprocate by putting one of those fights on BT. I have no problem in doing that. There's no, in my mind, and people would sound biased, but I am biased. We've got the best young talent in the country, and all of our fighters are in tremendous positions. All quite a few of them ranked number one by various organisations, and hopefully next year they're going to capitalise on it.
The BT are demonstrating their commitment to your young talent. Obviously, the prospect shows have launched now. There's another one coming up quite soon featuring David Adelaide, among many others. Is there any concern on your part? I'm sure you're well aware of all the talks about DAZN potentially buying BT Sport. Are you concerned about what direction they'll go in should that happen?
Well, they can only go in one direction if they sell it. They've got to get our permission because we have an exclusive boxing agreement with BT. Our deal is exclusive, and I don't know how that would work because that is the position. Legally, that is the position. We are their exclusive promoters, and we're their exclusive boxing promoter on pay-per-view, so nobody else can put any shows on there. That's a fact of life.
But what about if they are not as committed to your stable as BT Sport have been under the current ownership?
Well, it'd have to be because the contract's is quite emphatic. It tells you how many shows we have to put on a year, and that's what we do. I mean, we've built that from nothing. We've built BT into being a force in boxing. They now got the as we said from day one. When we took Tyson in there, I said he will be the best out of a lot of them, and he is. He's head and shoulders above all the heavyweights. He's the number one. And we got when you look at the youngsters coming through, we got two fighters, both ranked number one by two organisations. Joyce, number one by the BO, and we got Dillian Dubois ranked number one by the WBA. So we're in a really good position. And that's just the heavyweights. Just mentioned Zach Parker's number one. We've got a few other guys there, and we've got tremendous young talent. Real good prospects. I'm not going to roll them all off because I'll upset the ones I'll probably forget. Like Hamza Shiraz, who's fighting in December. I think it's going to be something really special, and there's quite a few of those guys. Apologies to the ones I'm not going to go through and mention to them because we'll be here all day. But we're in a good place, and the bottom line is that we've built that on the BT platform, and the BT platform is exclusive to us. Even if they sell it, even if they were to sell it, it's exclusive to us.
You mentioned Joyce and Dubois, so let's talk about them. Is Dubois going to be on the Tommy Fury, Jake Paul show?
We will be announcing Daniel's fight in the next week or so. I can't tell you where it's going to be yet, but we will be announcing it in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And as for Joe Joyce, how do you go about matching him until he gets his world title shot?
Look, Joe's a very ambitious guy, and he wants, you look at his record before he was with me, and since he's been with me, he stepped up. So he's looking for a meaningful fight, and we'll make him a meaningful fight. He's in the number one position in the BO. This Usyk rematch will take place with AJ, and then he's going to be in the mix.
Now, I wanted to ask you about another heavyweight who's always been ambitious and not afraid of good contenders, and that's Dillian Whyte. He was supposed to headline a show last week and unfortunately suffered a shoulder injury. He's now expected to be named the mandatory contender for the WBC title as the interim champion for Tyson Fury. What do you make of that? Is it likely to happen? And what do you make of the fight?
I think it's a good domestic. It's a good fight. It's a good world title fight. I haven't got a problem with that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be down to Tyson. He's the one who makes the decisions as to who he wants to fight and when he wants to fight. And he'll look at it when we're ready to look at it. I've spoke to Tyson quite a few times over the last since the Wilder fight, but we're not talked about really that much about boxing because he's spending time with his family and he's got a new baby daughter. He's been in constant training for well over 20 months, except for the virus when he caught corona virus and when his newborn baby was in hospital. So he's been quite constant and he's taken some quality time with his kids. It's been half term. His wife's got a book out, so they've been out promoting that. So when the dust settles, we'll sit down between all of us and look at the options. And at the end of the day, he'll look and see what the financially and all the ramifications as to what he wants to do, and we'll go with what he wants to do.
If the WBC do order the fight, would you want it to go to purse bids, or would you be confident of getting some sort of deal?
Well, whatever it's going to be, is going to be. Dillian Whyte's a free agent, so I'm sure if Tyson wants to go with it, we'll talk to him, and then it's up to him whether he wants to go and talk to Matchroom about the offer that we make him. If we make him an offer, we'll see where we go from there.
Would that come into play though in terms of whether Tyson accepts the fight? Because as you said, ultimately it's his decision.
It may do, Dan. I mean, it depends. It may do.
So there's a chance that, if it goes to purse bids and Matchroom win the bids, Tyson might not want to go onto a Matchroom.
No, I think if it goes to purse bids, whoever wins it, well, if that did happen, it is what it is. I don't know it'd be interesting to see how they put it on because the DAZN doesn't have pay-per-view. How are they going to make that work? They're not going to make it work based off of their subs. And I don't know whether they go back to Sky again, whether Sky would have them back. If they did win it, that's a big if.
If it ended up on BT Sport box office, where would that rank in terms of the box office fights you've put on there so far?
It'd be one of the top ones. I think if it was in this country, in Tyson's homecoming, I think it's going to be huge because most of the fights have been on in the early hours of the morning or late hours of the morning, I should say. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see. But I think Dillian Whyte and Tyson is a really big domestic fight.
And how do you see it going in the ring?
I just look at form. I look at Tyson. I look at Dillian Whyte against Derek Chisora as a mutual opponent. And I look at the first fight, which I thought Chisora done enough to win, didn't get the result. Second fight, he was in front till he got clips and, Dillian pulled it out of the bag and done what he had to do. And I look at Tyson when he fought Derek Chisora, which was a young Derek Chisora on a good roll. I think he 5 or 6 good wins against good opponents. I fancied Derek actually going into that fight when I made the fight, but he didn't win a second in the round. I mean, Tyson done an absolute job on him, and it went on too long. Eventually, I remember screaming at the corners to throw the towel in, which is what they did. And I look at, and I look after that fight. I remember looking at Tyson. I spoke to him and I said to him, if you fight Klitschko like that, you'll beat him. And that's exactly what he did. He done a job on him.
Yeah, I think we were all screaming for the towel to be thrown in that night because it was very late at the XL Arena and it was freezing.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the cold. I mean, he was getting a belting.
Do you see it being a comfortable fight for Tyson Fury? Do you see him dominating?
No, I don't think it'd be comfortable because title fights, people pull things out of the bag and they're come to fight. For Dillian Whyte, it's going to be it's a last chance saloon. He's never going to get another shot, I don't think. And so for him, he'll bring everything he's got to the table. But I just think everything he's got, I think Tyson's got to beat him in every department. I think Tyson's a much better boxer. I think he's stronger. He's got a better chin. I think he's a better puncher, better stamina. I think Tyson beats him in every department.
Where do you stand on the whole debate about Dillian Whyte and how much he deserves a world title shot? Because there's been opportunities rejected, but there's also been situations where perhaps he should have had a shot and hasn't. Where do you sit on that?
You should go and look in the mirror and say to yourself, why haven't I got the shot? It's down to him. He made his choices. I mean, Tyson was out the ring for nearly 3 years, came back, had 2 fights, and got him a world title fight. The cards were all with Matchroom at that time. They had AJ. So why didn't it happen? It didn't happen for maybe they didn't want it to happen. Matchroom, and when they did offer him some money, he didn't want to take the money. So sometimes you've got to take the short end to get in there and to do the business. But he didn't do it. So at the end of the day, that's down to him.
Now, before we move on from Tyson, after the trilogy win over Wilder, where does he rank now in terms of all time the fighters you've worked with and promoted?
I think he's probably number one when I look at it. Now I look at, I think about Joe Calzaghe and Naz and, lots of fighters over the years. But what he did was exceptional in as much that he's in beating Klitschko. And I know people keep saying, "Oh no, he's Ukrainian," but he was based in Germany, 54,000 people there. There weren't 53,500 people there who went to support Tyson Fury. They was all there for Klitschko, and he'd done a job on him. He outboxed him in a very controlled performance, and did done something nobody else could do. Absolutely beat the best fighter of his generation. He then went to the States and fought that statistically the hardest punching heavyweight out there ever, and probably the hardest punching heavyweight in the last 30 years. Done a job on him. 3 fights, three really good fights, all 3 different types of fights, and done them in the other guy's backyard. So you got to look at Tyson Fury and think, weren't here. You didn't have home advantage. So for me, he's the outstanding one heavyweight, certainly outstanding heavyweight of his generation, bar none. Head and shoulders above them all. He's done everything that's been asked of him. He's shown in every department what he's got. He's got a great engine, great stamina, he's got a great jab, great boxing brain. He's got fast hands. He's got great footwork, can punch, and got a great chin.